Good morning. We're going to talk today about the French and Indian War and its importance in American history. A lot of times we'll look at something and say, what's this got to do with what we're covering? If this is about the French or the French and the Indians, then we say, well, what's this has to do with us? First of all, the name is a little confusing. When we're talking about the French and Indian War, it's the French and a certain group of Native Americans versus the British and a certain group of Native Americans. They're allies. When people help one another in a fight, it's called allies. So the British and their Indian allies, quote unquote Indian, and the French and their Indian allies. At this time, let's go ahead and try to open up the slideshow. If you notice, for some reason, this isn't working the way I wanted it to work. So here we go. All right. The British victory over the French in North America will enlarge the British Empire, and it will change the way America operates. In the 1750s, Britain and France built empires and both wanted the Ohio River Valley. France had claimed the St. Lawrence River region and the Mississippi Valley. By 1754, the French colony of New France had a small population. Not a lot of people lived in New France, which is today what you would call Quebec. French colonists were mostly fur traders, missionaries, and priests. They have good relations and strong military alliances with most of the Native Americans. This is what North America looked like before the French and Indian War. You had this area here, which was all British. This light blue was all French. And then, of course, you had the British colonies that we know today. After the French and Indian War, North America is going to look like this. Very little French possessions and a much larger British Empire. France and Great Britain fought two very inconclusive wars in the early 1700s. Inconclusive means nobody won. So the French built Fort Duquesne in the Ohio Valley in land that was claimed by the British colony of Virginia. In 1754, George Washington, who was a young American/British officer, he was sent on a mission to kick the French out. He was defeated, but more so, his group accidentally killed a group of French diplomats they thought were soldiers, and the Native Americans scalped them. Well, this caused a tremendous issue between the two countries, and France would declare war. General Edwin Braddock's army was ambushed near Fort Duquesne, and between 1755 and 1756, the British lost a lot of battles to the French and their native allies. William Pitt became the British Prime Minister, and he helped the British win battles. The Iroquois joined the British, and in 1759, the British capture of Quebec leads to victory in the war. To end the war, the Treaty of Paris was signed. Now, this is the Treaty of Paris of 1763. Throughout history, we have several Treaty of Parises. But the Treaty of Paris of 1763 divided the land of the French between the British and Spain. Now, why Spain? Spain had helped France in the French and Indian War. So why did they get Louisiana? Simply because the British took Florida from the Spanish, and the French gave the Spanish Louisiana in payment for Florida. But with every victory, problems arose. The Ottawa leader Pontiac feared his loss of land, and he recaptured the British forts. This is one of the second times we know that the British had used smallpox as a weapon. They had blankets that were infected, and they gave those to the Native Americans. They caught smallpox, and a large percentage of the tribes were wiped out. The Indians, to calm the Indians down, to calm the Native Americans down, the British issued the Proclamation of 1763, which said no one could settle west of the Appalachian Mountains but Native Americans. This really upset the colonists because it stopped them from expanding. In reality, they didn't quit expanding. They just broke the law. Tensions in Massachusetts occurred because they'd cracked down on smuggling. So you had some colonists upset because they can't go settle out west. You have other colonists who are upset because they can't smuggle. The British issued writs of assistance, which allowed the search of ships, businesses, and homes. The colonists now felt threatened by the British. The colonists felt like, hey, we won this war for you. The British thought, no, you started this war. So to protect the Native Americans to protect the colonists from the Native Americans, the British sent troops. And they sent more troops because there were protests going on. And when you have troops, you have to pay those troops. So more taxes were imposed, such as the Sugar Act. And this further upset the colonists. So this is going to put us in a situation now where the colonists who had been considering themselves British are starting to consider themselves Americans. They believe the British are mistreating them. They believe they're taking away their rights as Englishmen. And this will eventually lead to events that will lead to the American Revolution.